Pre-spawn, it may be my favorite time of year to fish because it's one of the best times to catch a big fish. A lot of times you can catch groups of fish in really interesting transition ways. I'm gonna give you my top 5 baits. And number 1 is the flat-sided crankbait. Now there's a lot of different crankbaits that can play in the pre-spawn, but a flat side is the best when the water's still fairly cold, sub 55 degrees, when the fish are on rock and wood, transitioning into those spawning areas, right? As the water will get warmer, I'll edge towards, you know, a typical square bill or maybe a bait with a little more racket to it. But what you want in that cold water is a real subtle, tight movement. A flat side is a bait too that's not just a dirty water bait. Depending on the color you choose, you can begin to throw it in clear water because it is that tighter, more subtle, lifelike action as opposed to a square bill. I'm going to throw this around staging areas, be it if I'm on a flat lake, I'm going to look for a creek channel swing or a ditch with some wood on it. If I'm on a steeper lake, I'm going to look for a good wind-blown point or a transition bank with rock. I caught a lot of my fish actually on a flat-sided crankbait at Lake Fork back in 2022 when I won there. And a flat-sided crankbait has put a lot of fish in the boat. This is a tough conditions bait, and whenever I can't get a bite on anything else, that's when I break out the flat-sided crankbait. That brings me to bait number 2, which is the suspending jerkbait. The jerkbait over the past 7 or 8 years has become an incredibly diverse category, catching them a lot of different lakes, a lot of different conditions, a lot of different seasons. But typically speaking, wintertime and pre-spawn was where historically the jerkbait just excelled above the rest. Again, this is a bait where I'm going to lean towards in the cold water conditions, looking for suspended fish or fish around brush piles or grass edges on points. You know, these are fish that haven't quite migrated back to the spawning pockets, but as they begin to head that direction, they're bass highways, as we like to call them. They're stopping points along the way to get there. Depending on your cover, it could be a creek channel swing, could be a wind-blown point, could be a grassy point. And if the fish are suspended up in the water column, this is an incredible way to fish for them. You know, in the world of forward-facing sonar, I think that's when a jerkbait really became something that everybody kept in their tackle box. It was incredibly situational until then, but in the world of forward-facing sonar, a jerkbait is something that I always have tied on, but in the pre-spawn, that's where it really begins to shine. Lure number 3 is the compact jig. Compact tends to generate more bites. Just plain and simple. I mean, there's times and days whenever the giant 3/4 ounce jig with the giant skirt and the giant trailer tends to play. But having something compact, I think it's a lot more versatile. You can fish it around a lot more different types of cover and it gets more bites. The jig is another bait that can be thrown year round and can and will have success year round. But in the pre-spawn, on a post-frontal day, especially on a sunny day, a lot of times those fish like to get as close to that cover as you can get, right? And they want a slow presentation. If they're tight to the bottom and they won't react to things like a jerkbait or a flat-sided crankbait, a jig crawled as slow as you can fish it around those key pieces of cover can generate you a bite. And again, you can throw it around docks, you can throw it around laydowns, you can throw it around bluff walls and rock banks. And the versatility to this bait, north to south, east to west, is unmatched. And that's why a jig is on my list of top 5 baits for the pre-spawn. For lure number 4, has to be one of my favorites. And what we're transitioning to here is probably a little further along into the pre-spawn. On a warmer day, as those fish really start to position on that shallow cover, it's going to be the harness swim bait, inline swim bait, whichever swim bait you like to throw. Everybody knows what this swim bait is. It's a mag draft. One of the most fish catching swim baits ever made. And you know, this is when I'm starting to target those big pre-spawn females. You know, I'm looking for this on a steep bank with laydowns or docks. These are fish that are going to be suspended up on cover trying to sunbathe. I'm going to want a little bit of wind blowing in, and I'm going to slow roll this bad boy around. Now, a lot of people think swim baits got to be a clear water fishery, and that's not exactly the case. I've had success in some incredibly dirty conditions with this, throwing this in places you would want to throw a chatterbait or a spinnerbait. It's a big hunk of plastic, you know, and it imitates a fairly good-sized bait fish. You know, those big pre-spawn females, they're not typically just up there to feed. They're up there sunning. So you want something slow, that looks wounded and is going to be an easy snack for those big fish. And if you're looking to catch the fish of a lifetime, some type of swim bait, be it a glide bait, a harness swim bait, or something like that, on a sunny, breezy day in the pre-spawn, it's a great way to do it. And so it seems like every bait here that I've given you in the pre-spawn, it's gone from colder conditions to warmer conditions, right? And we're going to keep that trend going. For bait number 5, none other than the G-Crack Billow Shad. Now, this is going to be situational. This is when those fish maybe aren't spawning, but they're getting to those locations. It's a warm day. You're starting to see water temps creep into the high 50s, and they want to position in the shallowest, warmest piece of cover they can. Typically, that's going to be an incredibly thick piece of cover. So I'm going to start flipping around a creature bait or a tube or the old trusty Billow Shad. This one right here is actually not out yet to the public. This is my color, AJ's Juice, but if you see, it's stretchy. It's the elastomer version. And so something that maybe some of you have seen, maybe some of you haven't. It's going to come to market later this year. But I'm going to flip this, and depending on the cover, I'm going to try to go light of weight as possible. That's a big thing in the early spring. I think you want something that's going to have a really slow, natural fall. You're going to let this bait glide around as it gets around that cover. And that's just something my dad's taught me over the years. He tends to catch more fish with slow, thorough presentations than anybody I know in the pre-spawn. And I accredit it to, 1, he's really good, but 2, he fishes lighter weight than most other anglers will be brave enough to try. So this is a sunny, hot conditions day in the pre-spawn. They're starting to think about spawning, but they're just not there yet. Flip you a Billow Shad around, see what happens.
And you might win $200,000.
You might win 200 G's. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope these 5 baits help you catch more bass in the pre-spawn. And if you liked what you see, make sure you check out the Trimmed Up series. I'm going to put a video up here. There's tons of pre-spawn fishing going on this time of year. So there's going to be plenty of action to watch there. And we'll catch y'all in the next video.